The Kiev encirclement of September 1941 stands as one of the largest and most catastrophic defeats ever suffered by the Soviet Red Army during World War II. The battle, often referred to as the Kiev Pocket, resulted in the encirclement and destruction of 4 Soviet armies and the capture of more than 500,000 Soviet troops. It was a colossal victory for the German Wehrmacht, one that Hitler celebrated as proof of Blitzkrieg's unmatched power. Yet, paradoxically, this very success contributed to Germany's later strategic downfall. In the early stages of Operation Barbarossa, the German plan focused on rapid advances along 3 major directions: Leningrad in the north, Moscow in the center, and Ukraine in the south. Kiev, the capital of Soviet Ukraine, was a key objective. It was not only a political center, but also an industrial hub and a crucial defensive position along the Dnieper River. For the Soviets, defending Kiev meant protecting the agricultural heartland and preventing a deep German thrust into southern Russia. For Germany, capturing the city would open the way to the Donbas region and the Caucasus oil fields. In June and July 1941, German Army Group South under Gerd von Rundstedt pushed through western Ukraine, capturing cities such as Lvov and Uman. Meanwhile, Army Group Center under Fedor von Bock had advanced rapidly toward Smolensk, threatening Moscow. The Soviet High Command, the Stavka, struggled to understand where the main German attack would fall. Stalin refused to abandon Kiev, insisting that the southwestern front must hold the line at all costs. By August, the situation became increasingly dangerous for the Soviets. German forces were advancing on 2 sides, from the west and from the north. However, instead of pushing straight toward Moscow, Hitler made a controversial decision. He ordered Heinz Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group to turn south from the Central Front and link up with Paul Ludwig Ewald von Kleist's 1st Panzer Group advancing from the south. The aim was to create a gigantic pincer movement around Kiev. Many German generals, including Halder and Bock, wanted to continue the attack on Moscow, believing that the capital's fall would end the war. Hitler, however, saw the Soviet armies around Kiev as a more immediate threat. His decision shocked the German High Command, but ultimately shaped one of the greatest encirclements in military history. As Guderian moved south in late August 1941, Soviet commanders realized the danger. Yet, Stalin still refused to allow a retreat. Orders were issued to hold Kiev at all costs. Generals Kirponos, Tupikov, and Bagramian all warned Moscow that the front was collapsing and a massive encirclement was imminent. Their warnings were ignored. By September 12, the trap had essentially closed. Guderian's tanks from the north linked up with Kleist's tanks near Lakhvitsa, 180 kilometers east of Kiev. This maneuver encircled the entire Soviet southwestern front. Inside the pocket were 4 Soviet armies, the 5th, 21st, 26th, and 37th Armies, amounting to nearly 600,000 troops. The Soviet High Command belatedly ordered a breakout attempt, but it came too late. The Germans had already sealed the ring, deploying artillery, infantry, and Luftwaffe bombers to exploit the chaos inside the pocket. Soviet troops fought desperately to escape through forests, swamps, and broken terrain. Some small groups successfully slipped through the lines, but the majority were overwhelmed. By September 19, German forces entered Kiev. The city, though already damaged, had not yet seen the worst. Days later, massive explosions rocked central Kiev as the Soviet NKVD detonated mines left beneath buildings, killing German soldiers and civilians. In retaliation, the Germans carried out brutal reprisals, including mass arrests and executions. Meanwhile, the encirclement east of Kiev was collapsing. The Soviet commander, General Kerpenos, was killed while attempting to escape the pocket. Thousands of Soviet soldiers perished from hunger, exhaustion, and constant German attacks. By September 26th, the Germans declared the pocket eliminated. What remained were mountains of destroyed equipment, abandoned artillery, and tens of thousands of corpses. The final German tally was staggering. Over 600,000 Soviet soldiers captured, thousands of tanks, guns, trucks, and supplies seized. 4 Soviet armies wiped out. It was the largest encirclement in military history. Hitler celebrated the victory as proof that the Soviet Union was on the brink of collapse. Newspapers in Germany hailed the greatest victory in history. But this triumph contained a strategic flaw. Turning Guderian's tanks south had delayed the advance on Moscow by nearly a month. When the final push toward Moscow began in October, autumn rains and the brutal Russian winter soon halted the German offensive. Many historians argue that the time lost at Kiev directly contributed to the German failure before Moscow. For the Soviet Union, the Kiev catastrophe was a national tragedy. Entire units ceased to exist. The road to eastern Ukraine and the Donbass lay open to the Germans. Yet the Soviet state did not collapse. Instead, it mobilized new armies, reinforced Moscow, and prepared for a new phase of the war. In retrospect, the Battle of Kiev in 1941 represents both the high point of German military power and the beginning of its long decline. The victory was enormous, but the price, time, proved deadly to Hitler's broader ambitions. The Kiev pocket remains one of the most dramatic and tragic battles ever fought on the Eastern Front.